Because you want to think about it, capitalism, gentrification is like to capitalism, and the police protect profit, not people. That's all capital. So that's what they're gonna come. That's what they'll come and like. Hold on, can you drop it too much? You're driving too much out right now. Oh my god, I'm falling out. Like falling out.
Oh my god, actually, this is the. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
We are back with another Black Table Talk. Hey, ho, get excited, girl. So we have a few new panel members this week. We always have the original, true and true, Mariah Jackson.
What up?
We are here with Adilka, my other roommate that you guys will know and love. And we are also here with Mariam. Hello. Very esteemed panel we got here today, and we're going to be discussing gentrification.
Talking about the message, what it stands for. It's called gentrification. It's what happens when the property value of a certain area is brought down. Huh? You listening? Yeah. They bring the property value down. They can buy the land at a lower price. Then they move all the people out, raise the property value, and sell it at a profit. Now what we need to do is we need to keep everything in our neighborhood, everything, black.
Okay, so we'll just jump right into it. I looked up the definition for gentrification, and the Webster Dictionary gave me this definition. Gentrification is the process of renovating and improving a house or district so that it conforms to middle class taste. What do you think of that?
That doesn't even cover it. That's so off.
So
what is middle class taste?
What is positive? That word was it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Positive
Yeah.
middle class taste.
I feel like gentrification is such a negative word, and they've just, that dictionary definition sounds really nice, and I don't understand that.
It completely erases the process of
of what it is.
Like, who gets to say what neighborhood needs to be beautified or cleaned and to what standard, right? And it might go a lot to what you're saying in terms of like what is middle class, right? It's disgusting, actually.
So, how would you define gentrification?
The real gentrification.
The real deal. Come to Bushwick. No, but seriously. So I've lived in Bushwick since I was 2 years old. I'm 29 at the moment, and I've seen it firsthand go through a very rapid, very aggressive transformation. I would, one, say it's super complicated, it's super layered, super nuanced, and I would say that there are both visible and invisible factors that go to it. I would definitely say, and I hope Tanisha shows this bomb-ass clip later that also explains it a little bit, but property value goes down, right? Folks come in, buy the property, renovate and gut a building, raise the rent up really high, and so displacing folks who have been in the community for decades who can no longer afford to live here. The majority of the residents in Bushwick live below the poverty line, which means when you come in with market rates, right, the folks can no longer afford that. And for the most part, it isn't against the law, which is super problematic also.
I agree. And before we continue, also I want to actually like say where everyone was from, just so that I feel like that is important.
It's a huge factor on how you view gentrification and how you've actually been affected by gentrification. Yes. So I'll start. I am from Long Island. I'm from Bellport, Long Island. So in Bellport, and it's very important to mention, in Bellport you get two sides. You get North Bellport, which is where I'm from, and it's literally across one side of a train track where it's low income. Most of the black folks live in North Bellport, and a lot of people there are living in poverty. And then you go to South Bellport, where you have these mansions that the white folks are living, and they're literal mansions people who are making well over six figures, and we're all merged into the same high school, we're all merged into the same elementary school. So you're seeing what you're missing, basically, or you're seeing the other side. The white people are seeing what the black people are going through, and the black people are seeing what they're missing, basically. Bellport is very, very expensive, and you can tell when you get to the high school, they have money. They have a lot of money in Bellport, but they're not like, it's not going in the right places. So I moved to Bushwick last year, so I've been here for a year and a half almost. So I haven't personally been through gentrification. I haven't witnessed it like Adilka has, but I am living in a place that is currently gentrified, and it shows. There's a lot of white hipster people walking around Bushwick. So, and that's just the fact. Like, people are just walking around living their lives like nothing ever happened. Like, people weren't kicked out from the house that they're living in now. The house that we are currently in right now has been renovated, gutted, and now people like me live here. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I'm from Long Island as well as Tunisia. So like she was saying, Bellport had like one side of the track and had the other side of the track. I'm not from Bellport. I'm near Bellport, but I'm from Patchogue. So Patchogue was a predominantly white neighborhood. I felt like we were, I don't know, what would you explain? I guess Patchogue is,
it's the middle class.
It's a middle class, yeah, I guess,
It's a middle class, but it's upper middle class.
Yeah, I guess,
definitely.
Yeah, I would say that. So basically there was like, me and my friend Amani, we were the only two, there was like maybe like 3 black people within, like, so I grew up with, in my neighborhood, I grew up with a lot of white folks like on my block and stuff like that. I was actually near where I was supposed to go to another school called Pat Medford, where it's predominantly white. But thank God, my mom chose to send me to Bellport. I don't know why. She was like, you're going to Bellport. I was like, perfect.
Save your life.
And yeah, I'm happy for that, because Pat Med, I just would have probably had a bunch of white friends.
You probably would have turned out to be a different person.
I would have been, for sure, 100%. So I went to Bellport, and that's how I met Tunisia. And you know, I felt like I was surrounded by a lot of black people, but as I got older, I was like, wait, this is not, So basically, now I'm living in Bushwick, in Brooklyn, with Nay and Adi. So I've been here for a year and a half as well. And like Tunisia said, I wouldn't say I really suffered from, or I didn't know about gentrification, to be honest. I didn't know about it till I came here, so I don't know how long. I mean, I guess this has been going on, but I didn't know about it until I got to the city. I feel like coming here, you know, everyone's like, Bushwick is becoming gentrified, blah, blah. There's more black people on this block than there was on mine. So for me, it's a different, gentrification plays a different role, or I understand it, but I actually am dealing with more culture now than I was in Long Island. I dealt with it more so in college as well. And even there, it was predominantly a lot of white folks were there too. So it's interesting. So yeah.
I'm from the South Bronx, born and raised. I'm from a predominantly Hispanic and African community. Mostly like 85% of my high school was Dominican and Puerto Rican. So I'm predominantly Hispanic because I'm from the South Bronx. I'm watching my community become gentrified. I'm noticing the new sidewalks, the new bus stops, the new benches, the new methadone clinics that are being moved out of Brooklyn and moved into the Bronx. So gentrification for me is just like everywhere around me, because this is my home. Like, I'm not a transplant from anywhere else. So I see I notice whenever the train station all of a sudden has more lights and there's a random Starbucks, which is a marker of gentrification. I've been learning about gentrification since high school. So I'm really passionate about the topic, and it's overwhelming. I moved to Harlem and I'm in a more gentrified area than where I came from, but it's still very black, which I appreciate, and that was intentional because I need that. I don't know if I answered what I was supposed to answer.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, it was perfect.
I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. So I was born in the Dominican Republic and then immigrated to the States when I was 2, and lived in Bushwick up until just a few years ago. Me and my family were displaced and evicted because we couldn't afford to live in Bushwick no more. And we moved to Brownsville for 3 years, and now I'm back in a different income bracket, playing a different role, which is complicated for me, but I'll get to that later. When I was 15 years old, my mentor told me, begin to pay attention to who gets off and who gets on the L train. So the L train, if you don't know, stems from Canarsie to 8th Ave in the city. Canarsie, predominantly black neighborhood, Bushwick, right? A black and Latino all the way into 8th Avenue. And I noticed, it was 14 years ago, and I noticed that white folk would always get on and off on Bedford. I knew that was like white territory. And then after that, it was only like black and brown folks, right? The abuelos, the abuelas, the kids who were coming out of school, cops. So we start noticing they're on Morgan, they're on Lorimer, they're on Jefferson, right? As I get older, I'm watching these people get in and out, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. You start noticing the bodega, you get a bacon, egg, and cheese from everyday closes. You start noticing that juice shops open. They completely renovate a part of the train station you go to every day. You start seeing police pop up on every corner, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening. White people are jogging. There are more dog parks. We already have like our jogging. But let me tell you, like,
Once you see them jogging,
your rent's going up. Like, that's it. But it's like, we already don't got no access to green space, right? That's all the part of spatial violence. We don't got access to good food. We don't got access to parks. If we're in a park, the cops are kicking us out before the sun goes down. And you're watching all these white joggers with their little shorts in 40-degree weather running up and down the block, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening. And then you find yourself packing boxes in a home that you've called your home, that your friends come to sleep over, all that, because you can't afford to live here no more. So for me, gentrification is really personal, but it's also really enraging. There is this very quiet rage that settles in me when I walk up and down Bushwick. You know, when I see people who don't belong here, because I now say they don't belong here, look at me like I don't belong here, who kind of like stand off on the block and we'll look at each other, and I'm like, you know. And then, so I mentioned earlier, like, this very visible and very not visible. So the visible is like, you get a new population of people. You get these uppity bougie dogs with their white walkers, you get the joggers, you get all that, right? The stores close. Old mom and pop shops still close, new ones open, prices go up, right? Things like juice shops and yogurt shops, things that we just normally wouldn't have on the avenue, they're up, and they're like, oh, this is kind of cute, I can buy frozen yogurt, that shit tastes good. But then it's like, it's more like the not visible, right? So like, the violations that landlords aren't repairing, the water they're turning off to really push folks out. There's a lot of undocumented folk who won't call the cops, who won't go to court to report, you know, mice infestations and all that, because they're scared to be deported. So they'll live with those conditions, they'll live with mold in their houses, and the landlords will take advantage of that in order to move them out. And in the line of work I do, I meet folks like this all the time. The influx of police officers, so black and brown communities already are brutalized and battered by the police. All this really calls for, you'll see more, right? More on the streets, more to, because you want to think about it, capitalism, gentrification is like to capitalism, and the police protect profit, not people. That's all capital. So that's what they're gonna come, that's what they'll come and like, hold on. You're driving too much. You're driving too much out right now.
Oh my god, I'm falling out.
I'm falling out.
Oh my god, actually, this is the I'll see you guys later. Bye. I feel this.
Shorty said, please protect profit.
No, that statement is when I was just like, wait, hold on.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Back it up.
We need that on a t-shirt.
Alright, we will revisit everything that you just said. No, I just want to rewind because I want to talk about me. I want to talk about something that, like, I've been thinking about the day I stepped foot in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is, am I a gentrifier? Did I displace someone? Do I belong here? I know you mentioned a lot that there are folks who don't belong here. But I did come, okay, let's rewind. I didn't come from money. my family didn't have money, but I do make a certain amount of money now where I can afford to live in a place like this, a place that has been renovated, a place that mostly white people live in, does that mean that I am now a gentrifier? Did I push someone out? That's what I want to know. That's what I've been thinking, because it keeps me up at night. Yeah. Did I make someone who can no longer afford to live here? Where are they now?
I say no. Did you push someone out? You didn't push anyone out. The landlords pushed people out. The police pushed people out. The cable companies pushed people out. You didn't push anyone out. Like, you being here, I always say, being a person of color in a neighborhood that is being gentrified, you're actually helping. You're actually adding to the community, because you're less likely to call the cops on people for just being themselves. You wouldn't move into a community and push them aside for your comfort. That, you know what I mean? You wouldn't. The fact that you're even thinking about it, to me, means that you're not a gentrifier, because the people that I look at as gentrifiers, people who move in and completely disrespect and disregard the community that's here, who they don't consider where they moved into as a community, so they disrespect it at every turn. So they're the ones that are calling the cops on their neighbors who've been living here for 50 years, who love to play their bachata music, because that's what they do. And instead of knocking the door and having a conversation, they just call the cops. You didn't do that. I feel like a person of color moving into the neighborhood, mixed income communities actually do better for a community, especially let me take a second, let me think. So remember, when projects were created, there was a huge pushback about them because it actually doesn't do a service to the people in the communities. Leaving a bunch of poor people to live together, we all know about projects, doesn't do anything but keep the cycle of poverty going. But when people with mixed incomes move into the community, especially if they are the same people, it actually brings the entire community up, and it creates a space for there to be community leaders. But these people are not moving into these neighborhoods to be community leaders for the community that's there. They're moving in to push out, and I don't see you as somebody that would do that. So I don't think you're a gentrifier. I feel like if there was a community board, those who are more well off or more educated are more likely to join it. But because we're the same race and we have the same struggles, you're more likely to fight for, not fight against, the people that already live here, and say, well, let's do things to improve this community, not look at people that live here and say they need to be pushed out. So I really don't believe that you're a gentrifier. And I do think that's tied to race, because if anyone says that race has nothing to do with gentrification, you're lying. At least in New York.
Yeah. I know you were saying earlier, Mariah, that you
I hope I made sense.
No, you did. It made a lot of sense. I don't know. It's something that I've been struggling with.
You're not.
But I know you were saying that you think that gentrification is more, what did you say? It's more of a class thing than a race thing? And why do you feel that way?
Can I answer the question about the gentrifier?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Certainly.
We'll cycle back.
Yes, remember, that's on my, I will cycle back to that question, because I do want to answer that question. I was gonna, but in regards to saying, like, if I'm a gentrifier or not, like I said, I feel like I go back and forth with Nay as well, like, in regards to that, and I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes I feel like yes, and sometimes I feel like no. Like, I don't know, I want to say that I'm not, but then sometimes I think about it and I'm just like, well, I did take a spot that someone was living in probably the same bedroom that I was, and I took it because I can afford it and whatnot. So am I using my race as a way to say that I'm not a gentrifier? I don't know. I mean, yes, because I also agree to all the points that you were saying. So I agree with all those, so then that makes sense to saying that we are not. So it's confusing. So then, you know, that's why it brings me to point in case where it's kind of like a class more than a racial thing, which obviously gentrification involves race. Like, I'm not blind to that, but I just feel like
I think I know where you're going.
I don't know.
Maybe tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't know.
If it's more of a class thing than a race thing, if there is a white person that comes into Bushwick and they're not calling the cops on people and they're not disrespecting the community that has been here before them. They're still in the gentrification class. There's still a white person who doesn't belong in Bushwick, and they're considered a gentrifier. So now we're looking at class. We're not looking at race anymore.
I guess it's hard for me to separate class and race because I think they're just so tied together. And that's not to,
yes.
I do acknowledge that there are poor white people, and I do
Yes.
acknowledge that there are well-off black people, but the majority,
or at least what people will say,
what we see, what we know, and the numbers tell us is that race and class are closely tied together, especially New York. I don't want to speak for everywhere else because I only know about my lived experience and what I've seen here. They're close. I see your point, but I also think it's just different. I wish I had like a more sophisticated language or a better way to explain it, because you could be a problematic black person who has enough money to move into an area and be like, all these ghetto black people need to move out, you know, and you could also be a problem. So I acknowledge that, but my husband and I, we live in an area that is being gentrified. Like, our apartment building is full of empty apartments, and we understand that black people are being pushed out, and we see the white people moving in. We see them more and more. But I don't consider myself a gentrifier because I can afford to live in this community and keep it black. I don't consider myself a gentrifier because I'm supporting local businesses. I'm purposely buying black. I am intentional about what I am doing and the space that I'm in that community. Yeah. So I don't consider myself a gentrifier, and I don't think you should either.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I answered the question.
To challenge with love. I always say with
of
love.
Course.
Because it is with love.
Yes, it's fine.
I would say, and we've had this conversation before, that I do consider Tanisha and Mariah to be gentrifiers. Because that's what I said with love.
Am I gentrifying then? Because I'm from the South Bronx and I moved to Harlem. I moved from my area isn't being gentrified, it's straight projects. But
in the South Bronx.
But your home area.
Right.
Yeah, okay. But I moved into.
And how far in distance is the South Bronx from Harlem?
Where I'm literally 15 minutes
It's pretty
away.
close, right? Yeah. Exactly. So I would say you are also a gentrifier.
Stop it!
The reason, and I told you, No, but I totally understand. It has such a negative connotation to it, so no one wants to be labeled like someone who gentrifies. Gentrification is totally linked to class. Yes, race and class are very, 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 very much hand in hand. I agree for sure. But it is a class issue. It is about affording being able to afford to live here. And you know, and these girls, they do shop local. They do support. They don't call the cops on people. So to me personally, like me as Avi, I would say that makes y'all like people that I'm like, all right, they live in this community, they're here, you know, they're at least doing what I would hope they would do, which is support.
You're ally gentrifier.
You're ally.
So basically, I was just curious as to how we can build up these. All right, so my thing is like, you know, you go into these gentrified neighborhoods, and there's a Starbucks, and there's these cafes with oat milk and macadamia milk, and there's frozen yogurt or whatever the case is, which, you know, I like and I enjoy and whatnot, and whatever the case is, but obviously it's bigger than me and myself and whatnot. So it's just like, how can we like avoid like our people, like black people living in these harsh environments, in these harsh buildings and whatnot, with animals and bugs or like things that are just not fit for their health and whatnot. How do we build up these neighborhoods with the current situations that we're in without raising rent, or because you need money to do all of this? So it's just like, I don't understand, like, how can we avoid gentrification but also help our people? And I know like most people would be like, well, then black people need to start owning this or owning that.
But
but that's
realistic.
Yes, that's in a long,
or like
that's
a short
10-year maybe plan, 5-year, 10-year plan. But how are we doing that right now as we speak? Like, how do we fix, like, or even like, I don't know, like with the projects and stuff like that. Like the projects I didn't know of also until I was probably in college, I would say. I don't think I really knew that term. I didn't know that word. I didn't understand what the projects were. I've never seen the projects. I didn't understand anything about it. Because I also didn't know what brownstones were until I was in college. And I was like, what is a brownstone? Like, so, so yeah, so basically, how do we fix this problem? Is basically what I'm trying to say.
In a realistic time period.
Where it benefits our people, like Black people. Is it possible? Is it not possible? So then that's what I'm saying. That so then if you do fix it up, then you have Black people like me or Tanasia or you who have the money, who have the income, moving into these places.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. Like I don't know. Do we keep it as is? But then it's like, okay, then your grandma's living somewhere where there's cockroaches in her room or in her bed. Do we have programs that help these houses or people or whatever? Is it our responsibility then? But like, is it my responsibility? I don't know. I came from Long Island in a white neighborhood. So I can't, I'm not going back to my neighbor to fix anything because it's already fixed, I guess you could say.
I'm not going back to my neighborhood because I don't want to live there anymore. I think that's more the thing too. Like when I moved here, I'm like, okay, like this is a nice house. This is a nice neighborhood now. I don't want to be in Bellport anymore. Like I don't know if that's a reason why, or maybe not, that you left the South Bronx, but I personally don't want to be in North Bellport anymore. It wasn't any progress. You see the same people out on the streets all the time. Like I feel like I'm not personally being motivated to like do anything with my life when I'm constantly seeing the same people not doing anything with their life. I thought, okay, I need to get out of here. I need to find somewhere. I need to be in an environment that is going to be helpful for me. And that may be a lot of people's cases. So it kind of sucks when like they go somewhere and they're not wanted. And I don't want to say not wanted, but yes, not wanted. It could be a white person or a Black person in that same situation.
I mean, I can say for me, it wasn't about that. Personally, speaking honestly, I just wanted to live in a very Black space. Very specifically Black. And that's why I chose to move to Harlem. Because I grew up in a Latino community that didn't really accept me. I didn't deal with white people not accepting me. I didn't deal with white people making fun of me. I dealt with other Black American, African Americans, and Latinos making me feel like I don't belong because my parents don't speak English and we cook different food and we wear different clothes. So for me, I moved to Harlem because I saw that this was a space full of black, like African American specifically, Black people that had a rich culture, and white people were moving into that space, and I thought this is where I belong. So I didn't move to, I relate to what you're saying and I know that, but for me, when I see the guys in my neighborhood and the women and the girls that turn into women in my community not going anywhere, I feel sadness. It doesn't really like make me feel like my life isn't going anywhere. I just feel sad for them because I know that they literally never left the state, and if they did, they just went to Miami. Like I know that never really, I don't have that feeling. I moved to Harlem because I wanted to be in a Black space, a very like specifically Black. Like when I say Black, I'm not saying that, I'm not taking the Blackness away from Latinos or Latinas. I'm talking about Black American space. I just wanted to be in a Black American space. Yeah.
I think I'm like, I have a few points. Okay, no.
No, I want to hear your
But
points.
I'm just, as y'all are talking, I'm jotting like.
She has a notebook, so
I have a notebook. Always have a notebook. It's good to write your thoughts down because then I'll forget. I think going back to Mariah's original question, I would think about wealth redistribution for sure. So I was mentioning how, and I was using the public school system in New York as an example. So you know, there's 1.1 million students, about 5,500 school safety agents, only 2,800 social workers, which you start already with that kind of problem. But that 5,500 police force is bigger than, it's like the 6th largest police force in the country. So you're already, just to put in mass perspectives, New York City spends about $300 million a year on that school safety unit. We look at a lot, you know, when you ask about, well, there's no music class, there's no instruments, there's none of this, they're like, there's no money, and the answer is that there is money, it's just where it's being put. You take away that $300 million from school safety and you reinvest it in, you know, things that really can help young people, then we'd be living in a very different world. I say that to say that if the city really invested in these communities, they wouldn't look like that. They wouldn't need waves of gentrification to make them better, because when you think about why people even engage in like what they would call criminal activities, is because of poverty. If someone has a crib to live in and food to eat, they don't gotta go out and steal shit. They don't gotta go out and do shit because they have their needs met. And I feel like when I think about things like the projects, you know, they really invest in like omnipresence and putting up these big floodlights and all these police, but not the infrastructure of the community and of people. And I feel like when you ask what about repairs, landlords are supposed to make those repairs. You own the building, you own the property, you're supposed to do that. And politicians are supposed to hold landlords to that, but don't. And then what happens is that then people have to be so either like sick
doing
or
like floors or like reconstruction.
Yeah, all that,
like
the landlord, the minute it's your building, you have to do that, you know? So it's like,
the city doesn't hold them accountable.
They don't, because they're people who push lawmakers to push the kind of laws that they want and all that kind of stuff. I do think folks overall should own land. I don't know what steps necessarily. I think teaching things like financial literacy, all that kind of stuff is important. They don't, you know, also Black and brown communities are food deserts. Well, you find a chain of fast foods, but you can find good food for you without really spending a penny or having to travel really far to do that. We think about like Far Rockaway, for example. And, you know, I was listening to y'all talking, and it's really this crabs in a barrel analogy where they have us all in the bottom of the barrel and we're fighting each other to get out, but we're not fighting the people who put us in the barrel to begin with. And I feel like it's real easy to be like, I'm done with this neighborhood, I have bad experiences, I'm leaving. And when you don't reinvest in the neighborhood you come from, people are never gonna get out of that cycle, because we can't depend on the city to do it, right? We gotta depend on ourselves. And I understand the mentality of like, I made it, I'm leaving, I don't gotta look back, because it's like, you can think no one did anything to get me here, I did this for my own. And that's resiliency and that's powerful. But it's real easy to really just forget about the people who are on the block all the time, right? The people who are homeless, who use drugs. It's real easy to walk by them because it doesn't affect you, but they're never gonna leave that. There needs to be a cycle breaker, and sometimes we have to overextend ourselves to be those people. Even when I didn't live in Bushwick, I was still coming here and giving back to Bushwick because it's what I love, it's what I am. And the Bushwick that you see now isn't the Bushwick that was here 20 years ago. Yes, there was a lot of crime and a lot of stuff because Bushwick was super impoverished, and you just do that kind of shit when your needs ain't met. And I feel like now that all this gentrification's here, they're like, it's better now, but it's like, no, they've allocated money to here, not for us, but for who's here now at their interest. And you know, there's just a lot of stigma, a lot of anti-blackness within our own communities, where our grandmas will be like, hold your purse and walk away from the boys in the corner, but won't talk about, you know, why the stores are closing, or why we can't get jobs, or why we normalize things like going to school with metal detectors, or why we normalize being pat down by police against the law. And I feel like I like to look at things as is really tied together, because everything's tied together. But yeah,
those are really good answers. I would have to say, like, for the crabs in the barrel method, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. I'm not looking at who put me here, but I am looking to get myself into a better situation, and I'm not really looking back at like what I can do to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's nothing I'm gonna say right now that's gonna be like, well, I'm gonna go back to Belport. I'm gonna do something real good. But I'm really probably never going back to Long Island. Like, that's the reality of my situation. But I think for someone who's a little bit more passionate about the situation, about their home and where they come from, it would be good to go back and try to see where you can make changes or help the people who are coming up there. Personally, I don't know, since it was like black and white in Belport, I don't know who was doing that when I was coming up. Like, I don't know who I was, you know, I don't know who was making those moves and making those sacrifices for me when I was growing up. I don't know who that person was, but I have one more thing I really want to discuss. Because I question you about it all the time. So I just want to just bring it to the table real quick. So Adilka will often put things on her Instagram story about gentrification. That's part of the reason why I wanted to have this discussion today. But it'll be like a random white person walking down the street. A random white person just walking down the street, minding their own business, and Adilka will snap them and be like, you don't belong here, or you're a gentrifier, or something of the sort. Like, and that is her prerogative. It doesn't, I mean, but I always question it because I'm like, why is it just, you know, why them? Like, and trust me, you've given plenty of examples today about why white people are gentrifiers and why they, how they disrespect the community who's lived here before. But I always say, like, what about the people who come from a place where maybe I come from, or who don't have money, who maybe got a little bit of something in their pocket now and want to move to an area where they can, you know, thrive a little bit. So why does she feel that it is like, you don't belong here? Like, and it makes me feel a little strange when I see that, because I'm like, if I see a white person on the street, like, I don't automatically go to, like, especially in Brooklyn because I'm not from here, but like, I don't automatically go to this person doesn't belong here.
I always think that.
That they don't belong.
I know, but I don't.
Yeah, I pointed out to him every single time I see white people on the train, on the sidewalk. When I see a whole bunch of black people on their way home from work and I see one random white girl, I notice, my eyes zero in and I'm just like, they're about to push us out. I don't see them coming in and integrating, so I notice, because I remember getting on the train and purposefully standing in front of a white person, because I know you're gonna get up after 72nd Street so I can sit down. So then to cut to, I'm getting on the train at 149th and you're on the train already with your seat. Now I really don't fuck with you. How?
Because now you don't got a seat.
Now I don't have a seat. And where are you that you're further uptown than me? Because I know wherever you are, that means that there's a whiteout happening.
Yeah. But you don't feel like there could be some kind of outlier, some kind of like...
I have yet to meet an outlier. I'm sorry. Every time they come with their stores, their coffee shops, their dogs, their strollers, their rules, their cleaner sidewalks. They don't ever... I've yet to meet an outlier. If there's one, the rest of them will come. And I hate to say this because I feel like I sound racist, but every time I see a white person in Harlem right now, because I was on 135th, which is still close to the Bronx, so I still see it's predominantly black. But since we moved there in June, and since we moved there to now, I'm just like, what's going on? It's Sunday afternoon, and there's a young white couple using my bank in my neighborhood. What is going on?
What I will tell you is,
I don't know. Well, they're coming. They're here. They're here to stay. That is a thing. They're coming and they're here. That's not even the that's not even the question.
I'm sorry. I just got my feelings.
No,
but it's just like,
but that's so real, and it's kind of like what I tell Nate sometimes. It's like, for me,
I do that all the time. I don't post it because I have white followers and I don't want to offend people. To be honest, I care about it. I'm always like,
but I think two quick things I'll say is like, one, you technically can't be racist, because to be racist,
I know
it's systemic. Yes, you can be prejudiced. I'm hella prejudiced, like, and you know, and I hold to that.
We all are.
What I will say is, I won't sit here like I don't have some white folk in my life that I love.
I have the topic.
I have a very small handful, maybe like 3 or 4 of them, of like white folk that I love, and it's because they do one thing that the white folk in Bushwick, and this is why I get into a fight, don't do, and that's acknowledge their whiteness. And acknowledge your privilege, and acknowledge that you benefit from white supremacy, which is the root of all that happens to us. And you really walk around like you don't, and that shit makes me angry. It's like, I see red, man. It's like, you look at me like you have no fucking idea. You're walking around with your hair locked. Like, it's disrespectful. You look stupid. It's like, I just it's not even about looking dirty. It's like, you're disrespecting an entire culture where they just in 2019 made a law about you can rock your natural hair, but you get to parade around like shit's cute. Like you're on Troutman walking around with these art crew visits. Like, no, fuck you. There's nothing. We're not like this live display. Like, and then when you approach them, because I've approached them and been like, what y'all do? It's not what it looks like. You're parading around with a bunch of foreign white folk.
They do the Bushwick tours now too.
Like they're doing tours in the South Bronx.
Like, and to me, that's the frustrating part, because you will sit here and disembowel a hood that, one, is recovering because there were fires in the 70s that fucked everything up. So we were already like recuperating and stuff. We were already living in poverty, right? Affected by crack epidemic, all that. And no one's sitting here giving us these resources, but you're gonna come here and suck up what they will give because you're here and then not acknowledge that shit. Like, you get to go home and go to bed and sleep okay because you smiled at a black person on your block. Like, that shit, I can't respect it.
I was talking about, though, I mean, all of that stuff is valid, but I was talking about, let's use the locks example. I was talking about the person who may have locks, right? But also knows the culture, respects the culture. Like, I feel like,
but can you wouldn't have
it
if you respected the culture.
Yes.
If you really respected the culture,
unless you're actually from like or like Asian folk that are from Jamaica, and they have locks.
But that's
like,
not
talking about. I just feel like generalizing all white people
from Jamaica,
who come here or who
No, they're from Jamaica.
Yeah, they are from Jamaica. To them, they're from Jamaica. If you're born,
but these white folk rocking around with their locks, they.
I mean, let's bring it back to gentrification. I just feel like.
They're not from Jamaica. They came from somewhere to Jamaica.
I mean, that's like had generations of children, but they're still not from Jamaica.
If that's all they know, then you can't
blame them.
Block that. Like,
you can't discredit
you can't discredit. Yeah, that's all they. Literally, that's all they know. They grew up in Jamaica. They were born in Jamaica. They don't know anything except.
So we are against any white person who moves to a place that is not for white people. Like I'm just saying.
Yes,
we are against white people coming from somewhere else, doesn't matter where they come from, and moving here or moving to
I'm against it because I feel like they're also against it too. That's just
how I feel.
Why?
If they were against it.
Don't worry. Don't.
I am against white folk moving into historically black and brown communities at the expense of black and brown people. I will always be against it.
They literally pushed us into these communities that they didn't want. Like, in the Bronx, it was agricultural. Like, that's why it's so hilly. And there's huge apartments and lots of space because it was agricultural. It was tons of white people, and they decided they didn't want to live there anymore. It wasn't good enough for them. So what did they do? They created all these laws and these rules, and they built these highways, and they pushed us here. They burned down the buildings. They did everything to put us here in this place that was undesirable. And now they're calling the Bronx the final frontier. And they're building luxury condos, and they're creating zones where you can't get affordable internet and cable. And so, no, you're not welcome because you pushed us here because you didn't want us anywhere else. And now you've decided that you want us.
But they didn't push us here. Those people who are moving here now, they have nothing to do with it. Their ancestors or whoever, their people who came before them pushed you here and your ancestors here. They are just looking for
ignorance.
They are just moving here because, hey, there's a luxury building here, like this seems nice.
Exactly, and you should know, or at least be conscious of the fact that this luxury building sticking out like a sore thumb.
Literally next to a project building.
Yeah, next to the project building.
Actually across the street.
But this building has a pool and a gym and a parking.
That somewhere else where
it has everything that I need. It has every amenity that I could think of that I need in my life, and it's right next to the A train or whatever train goes into the Bronx. It's right next to the A train. I'm on that train right next to the A6. Sorry, I'm not the Bronx. Sorry,
we don't do it.
It's right next to the
find your amenities somewhere else. You don't have to come to Bushwick to find that.
This works for me.
That's the thing.
When I rob you,
I'm saying all of I'm saying that was advocate.
Shove you into a freaking dumpster. But to be honest, that's the issue though. It's always about what works for them.
Right.
When the American dream and the idea was about living in the suburbs, and we didn't work there, and they didn't want us there. They
Because
literally
we're not
kept
part
us,
of this American
they
dream. This
kept
fake
us
ass
out of there,
dream.
and they pushed us into the city. That's why when usually people want to describe black
Batteries
people
blinking, I'm not
in New
saying.
York, they say urban.
Yeah.
Because we are the urban in Chicago, we are the urban in California, we are the urban in New York. We are urban, right? But now this new generation has decided that they want the bodega, they want to walk to the cafe, they don't want to drive. America's actually fucked up the housing, so we don't want to buy a house. So we're gonna push y'all into the suburbs now.
It's all about profiting and appropriating for
So
culture.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
like I get it. You didn't do it, but like you're still, the cycle is going because now it works for you. When it didn't work for you, I couldn't have a backyard.
Right.
But now you want to live in an apartment because you want to walk to the cafe.
And because you
down
want
the
to be
street.
down with what's cute. So in 10 years,
So
none of us
now,
can live here.
now that this works for you, I have to go. Your ancestors, it didn't work for them for me to live in the same neighborhood. Your property values are going down. You said you live in a neighborhood with white people, but if too many black families move there, the property value of the neighborhood goes down. I don't really understand how that's possible.
Yeah.
I don't really get that, but that's what it is, right?
Is it fact?
In
Because
your
they see
neighborhood,
black
Mariah,
people
where you grew
as
up,
lessening the value
if
of
4
property.
more black families moved into that neighborhood, the property value of the neighborhood go down.
Because
goes
they don't
down.
think black folks deserve to live in dignity.
Even though
like,
they're in the same tax bracket.
But that's
Like,
an anomaly.
talking about,
But
I
you're
feel
still
like
not from Jamaica.
I just feel like
They're
generalizing
born and
all
raised
white
there, they're not
people
from Jamaica,
who
though.
come
They're
here
still
or
not
who
from-
may.
No, there's
No, they're from.
yeah, they are from
born and
Jamaica. To
raised
them,
there,
they're
you are,
from
that's where
Jamaica.
you're
If you're born,
Where
where do they come
okay,
from?
but these white folk rocking
there's
around with their locks, they
I mean, let's bring it back to gentrification. I just feel like
no,
they're
they're still not from Jamaica. They came from somewhere to Jamaica.
I mean,
And
that
they
is true,
had
but
generations
that's-
of children,
Yes, that is
but they're
true.
still not from
But
Jamaica.
I, if that's all they know, then you can't
blame them
block
for
that.
that.
Like, yeah,
You can't
that's
discredit
literally all
their...
you can't discredit. Yeah, that's all they. Literally, that's all they know. They grew up in Jamaica. They were born in Jamaica. They don't know anything except
So
for.
we are against any white person who moves to a place that is not for white people. Like I'm just saying.
Yes, no, I understand what
we
you're
are against white people coming from somewhere else, doesn't matter where they come from, and moving here or moving to
I'm
Saffron.
against it because I feel like they are also against it too. That's just
Then
how
why
I feel.
come here?
Why? Then why?
If they were against it.
I am against
No, I
white
like the
folk
outside
moving into
interaction.
historically black and brown communities at the expense
Because
of
they
black and brown
literally
people. I will
pushed
always
us.
be against it.
They literally
Against
pushed us into these communities that
Your
they didn't
ancestors
want.
here. They are just looking
I
for.
think
I'm
it's
just
the ignorance.
They are just moving here because hey, there's a luxury building here. Like this seems nice.
Exactly,
Or,
and you
like,
should know, or at least be conscious of the fact that this luxury building sticking out like a sore thumb,
Literally next
in
to a
this
project building.
Yeah, next to the project building.
Actually
they don't
across the
belong
street
there.
But
from
this
a project
building has a pool and a gym
so
and
go
parking.
build that somewhere else where
It has
you can
everything
afford to
that I
live.
need. It has every amenity that I could think of that I need in my life. And it's right next to the A train or whatever train goes into the Bronx. It's right next to the A train. I'm on that train right into the
Six.
Sorry, I'm not from the Bronx.
Right.
Sorry.
We don't do
It's right next to the 6th train. This
It's like find your amenities somewhere else. And you don't
But
have to
this
come to
works
Bushwick
for
to
me.
find that.
This
Well,
works for
That's
me.
the thing.
When I rob you, no.
I'm saying I'm playing devil's advocate.
Shove you into a freaking dumpster. But
I'm really sorry. I think that the camera may or may not have recorded what we were saying, but there will be a recording of all of the intense, passionate feelings that we just spoke about regarding gentrification. But we are going to close. I don't know if you guys have any closing remarks. What do you think you will do to kind of fix this ongoing problem of gentrification? If you have any ideas, please spread them now.
from this conversation, I'm definitely going to.
Sorry.
She said closing remark.
Yes, give your closing remark. Everyone, we're going around. Go.
From this conversation, I'm
Yep.
definitely going to talk to
You got some
Adilka
good
more
pointers,
about
yeah.
what are the things I can do to help the community beyond just being a presence. I would like to do more. So I definitely need to learn what I can do. So that's what I've gotten from here.
That's good. I'm glad I can help you guys forge this connection, because that's what I'm here for. What would you do, Mariah?
Damn, I thought we were going that way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I feel as though I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously, like, I'll try to help. I don't know.
It's blinking, so I wanna.
Okay, all right. I don't know exactly what I would do. I will say, I was, talking to a friend of mine, LeVar, and I was telling him about my vision boards and whatever and all that good stuff. Basically, so he works for a school and whatever, because I was telling him, like, one day I want to help, like, youth girls and talk about, like, their visions and their goals and blah, blah, blah. So basically, to help this circle, I guess this would be, I think that I would try to, work with a bunch of youth and do goal-oriented stuff so that they can think about and expand their ideas and help their neighborhoods at younger ages and not just try to run from it or whatever the case is. So maybe I'll take this and tie it in there, because it's something that he was just like, I definitely feel like you should do that, and I want to too, and that'll be my take back and helping with this whole gentrification and whatnot. But I did learn a lot, and I will say,
as did I, and I feel like for someone who is currently or in a short period of time going to be looking for a new apartment to live in, I don't want to put any promises out there for you guys, but I will at least see it, and I'll be more aware of it when I'm looking for a new apartment. Hopefully that I'm not like just going for the first thing that is convenient for myself, which is a big thing for me. Convenience is everything, but hopefully in this new apartment hunt, I can kind of be more conscious of where I'm living and where I'm going to be spending my future monies, so that it does help the community in that kind of way. And that's what I'm going to do, hopefully.
Yeah. I hear that. I just wanted to reaffirm your presence in this. I think it definitely matters, and it's definitely a powerful tool. I'm excited to look forward. I'm looking forward to ways we can make this more expansive, so Harlem be ready. I will just continue to do what I've been doing, organize, agitate, educate, and hopefully not get into a fist fight. But yeah, sticking to my roots and to what I know and being open to learning. And I think this is important. We could be doing anything else on a Saturday night, and we're doing this, which is raising a lot of it's raising a lot of awareness. So I hope folks tune in and keep tuning in.
Wow, thank you. Just close out for me. No, for real though. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into my channel once again for another Black Table Talk. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys, my very esteemed panel, for being here. Make sure you follow them all at
Mariah with 2 H's.
Okay.
At _Adilka, ADILKA.
At Mimi Moments, MIMI _ moments. At Mimi _ moments. MIMI
Moments.
Thank you guys. I love you so much. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. And come back next week when I post another video. Thank you. I love you. Bye.
Turn the bell notifications on.
Oh, that too.
I see you. Turn the bell notifications on. Bye.